remember I wasn't allowed to fly on an airplane unless I was wearing a proper dress. I kind of lost a little bit of that when I was going to school because I wore a uniform. I went to an all-girls school in the city. My mom always had incredible, still does, incredible style. Really kind of out there and eccentric. Always like a style icon to me. She always just looked dressed to the nines. Even if she was going to the grocery store. I'm born and raised in New York. Went to Spence. So there was definitely like girls wearing Prada loafers in 6th grade. I graduated from Poly Prep. I went there my last 2 years, which was an extremely diverse school. I got to Poly and it was kind of like, you know, I wasn't really black enough. I didn't really fit into any specific group. You know, a lot of the kids lived in Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens. Like I was a kid from the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I loved Poly. It was such a great experience. I graduated from Bard College with a BA in Fine Art, and it was because of Poly where I even discovered that I had a knack for sculpture. Well, these sculptures came about through my senior project at Bard. They kind of came from a magical place. I mean, I really was thinking more about this goo essence that kind of had a magical creation effect and could create life where there wasn't necessarily, I mean, there were living organisms on this planet that I'm like thinking about, and that's very much where these figures came from. This project for me was really therapeutic. I had a system. You know, I had to melt the wax, I'd have to break the wax and I'd have to melt it, and then I'd have to pour it, then I'd have to let it cool, then I'd have to break it again, melt it, pour it, let it cool. It was relaxing. What I'm wearing right now is a vintage 40s top, and I'm having like a total fruit moment right now. I've got fruit on my hands, I'm like loving fruit, I've been eating tons of fruit. My mom is very much like, what you put into your body is very important because your body is a temple. That's like kind of the philosophy I've like always grown up with. I work out, I box, which is also I think very good for the mind because it's like you have to do all these combinations, and if you're not focused for even a second. Last week I wasn't focused for a split second. My trainer hit me in the face. Mustard is like a big thing for me right now. I also love mustard in general, all types of mustard. My only and first ever Louis Vuitton bag. I just love the texture of that. I was kicked out of Spence for smoking weed on a school trip. My parents sent me to like a rehab after I gotten kicked out of school for the rest of the school year. I wouldn't take it back for anything because it showed me how crazy drugs are, and that was also really hard because I had no friends there. You know, to them I was just like some rich girl who smoked weed and got kicked out of school from New York. At least I got it in young. And at least it was just for something like smoking weed, which is funny now because now my family is going into the medical marijuana business. So it comes full circle. We're basically gonna open a dispensary, a weed dispensary in LA, and turn it into a retail store and use medical marijuana as kind of our platform to reaching a different audience. Everything kind of relates back to food, you know what I mean? Which is really interesting because I'm such a foodie and like love food so much, and like to see my grandmother, you know, deprive herself of such a richness. So it's a very interesting mix that she had going on because she was so generous and so giving and just so like selfless. But at the same time, she was like so miserable and uncomfortable in her own body and self-deprecating and addicted to, you know, painkillers and alcohol. That runs in our family, alcoholism. But I guess that's what you get for a family that started a liquor company. My grandfather's family, we were started out as bootleggers from Canada, as a family that started their fortune on alcohol during Prohibition. Now that we're going into medical marijuana and it's still not federally approved of. I just feel like having my grandmother essentially pass away because her body was so frail that she couldn't fight off a cold and all of her organs shut down. You know, having that, like I mean, I was with her when she passed. Like, the whole experience definitely made me think about how I treat myself. It really comes down to your priorities, you know, like making family and health and love and happiness like a priority in your life. Then the other things kind of fall into place.